Next on the news, Pope Francis wraps up a busy weekend by visiting the Italian city of L'Aquila and dispelling rumors that he will resign. And
when the Pope names cardinals, basically he's shaping the leadership of the Catholic Church for at least a generation.
The Holy Father now has 20 new advisors. Crux editor John Allen breaks down the changes in the makeup of cardinals at the Vatican. Also, as the buses keep rolling into the Big Apple, why the city is delaying plans for an intake center for migrants. Plus, it's a place where the faithful are drawn, and now the Way of St. James seeing a record number of pilgrims this summer. I'm Christine Persichetti. Current News starts right now. Many thought he may resign, but instead, Pope Francis is moving forward with his papacy, donning a hard hat as he toured L'Aquila, a city destroyed by an earthquake in 2009. During his visit to the city, the Holy Father defied the rumors that he would step down as Pope. He prayed at the tomb of Pope Celestine V, and he also had a message of mercy for the survivors of the quake that devastated L'Aquila. And Francis also made history. It's the first time this has happened in nearly 730 years. Pope Francis knocked 3 times to open the holy door of the Basilica of Santa Maria di Colomagio in L'Aquila, the first pontiff to do so since Pope Celestine V. Francis then prayed before the tomb of the first pope to resign, something Pope Emeritus Benedict also did just 4 years before resigning himself. Despite rumors that Pope Francis, who's dealing with some health problems, might be inclined to step down as well after this visit, he made no such announcement. But at an earlier mass, he did speak about Celestine V.
In tal senso, Celestino V è stato un testimone coraggioso del Vangelo, perché nessuna logica di potere lo ha potuto imprigionare e gestire. In lui noi ammiriamo una Chiesa libera dalle logiche mondane e pienamente testimone di quel nome di Dio che è misericordia.
The Pope also delivered a message of faith and hope to the families of those killed in the 2009 earthquake.
Il dolore c'è e le belle parole aiutano, ma il dolore rimane. E con parole non si va al dolore, soltanto la vicinanza, l'amicizia, l'affetto, camminare insieme, aiutarci come fratelli e andare avanti. O siamo un popolo di Dio o non si risolve.
Francis then put on a hard hat to visit the nearby Chapel of Memory, which was built to remember those killed by the quake. And during his Sunday Angelus in L'Aquila, Pope Francis offered a prayer for the people of Pakistan, which was hit by devastating flooding, and also for the people of Ukraine. It was a busy weekend for the Pope. That trip came after the Holy Father welcomed 20 new cardinals into the Catholic Church Saturday. Among them, Cardinal Robert McElroy, the newest and youngest prelate to come from the United States. The newly created cardinals received the Zucchetto, Beretta, and ring as signs of their pastoral ties to the church. During his homily, Pope Francis encouraged the prelates to bring the fire of God and Jesus' love to all.
Ci chiama per nome, ognuno di noi, ognuno. Ci chiama per nome, non siamo un numero. Ci chiama per nome, ci guarda negli occhi a ognuno di noi, lasciamoci guardare gli occhi, e ci chiede, dimmi, tu, nuovo cardinale, e tu voi, fratelli cardinali, posso contare su di te? Quella domanda del Signore.
The new cardinals represent 16 countries, with the entire 226 members of the College of Cardinals representing more than 90 countries. The first stop for the church's 20 new prelates was a visit to Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. Pope Francis started the custom of presenting the new cardinals to the Pope Emeritus after the 2016 consistory. In the 2 consistories prior to that, the Pope Emeritus took part in the celebration at St. Peter's Basilica. Benedict, along with Pope Francis, blessed the new cardinals, and the group prayed the Salve Regina together. Since 2013, Pope Francis has held 8 consistories. John Allen, editor at Crux, joins us now to talk more about the Pope's busiest weekend in months. Hi, John.
Hey, Christine.
So, John, now we have 20 new close advisors to the Pope. But what does that title entail? How in the know are they really?
Well, the term cardinal itself comes, the Latin root has to do with a hinge, right? And the idea is that the cardinal is the hinge between the Pope and the church around the world. They are supposed to be the Pope's, in effect, last line of defense, right? And his closest and most trusted advisors. When the Pope names cardinals, basically he's shaping the leadership of the Catholic Church for at least a generation. It's arguably the single most important thing any Pope ever does. And now Pope Francis has named, in effect, almost 2/3 of all those cardinals who will be electing his successor. So clearly, this is Francis leaving his stamp on the Catholic Church for some time to come, Christine.
Absolutely. And we spoke to you last week about one of those prelates, American Cardinal Robert McElroy. You said we should pay special attention to the Vatican role that Cardinal McElroy was given because it showed what role he would play in Pope Francis's papacy. So what is his new ministry?
McElroy is going to be a key advisor to the Pope on multiple fronts. I don't think you can boil it down to one thing. I think he is going to join the company of, say, Cardinal Blaise Cupich of Chicago, or Cardinal Joe Tobin of Newark, or Cardinal Wilton Gregory in the Capitol in Washington. These are, in effect, the Pope's most trusted American allies and interpreters. So it's not just that McElroy will be bringing the voice of America to the Vatican. He's also going to be bringing the voice of Francis to the United States, not just in San Diego, but across the entire country.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about the Pope's trip. There were a lot of rumors about Pope Francis's potential resignation ahead of the visit. That didn't happen. So why do you think he chose to take a trip to L'Aquila, if not to resign?
Well, announcing a resignation is hardly the only reason to go to L'Aquila, Christine. First of all, it's a beautiful town, been there several times. Beyond that, Pope Celestine V, during his brief 5-month papacy in the long ago year of 1294, really did only 2 things of significance. One was resigning, which we all know. The other is he instituted this thing called the Celestinian Pardon. It's an annual remission of sin, which is contingent upon simply visiting the basilica there, taking part in Mass, and making a good confession. Pope Francis is, of course, the Pope of Mercy. Let's remember his motto, miserando atque elegendo, basically meaning choosing through the eyes of mercy. Now, look, Christine, let's not be naive about this. A lot of commentators and pundits on the Vatican have speculated that Pope Francis has some kind of August surprise in store during these days when all the cardinals are in town. As you noted originally, the theory du jour in the Italian press is that he might be about to issue some kind of reconfiguration of the office of Emeritus Pope. He has said in the past he's not completely comfortable with the way it works right now. And so, people are trying to read all kinds of significance into, these gestures. But frankly, I think in the case of the L'Aquila visit, it may be as simple as he wanted to take part in Italy's premier annual Festival of Mercy.
Well, some think he still might resign. Would you be surprised if he did? And are we ever going to stop guessing about this?
I have learned the hard way never to be surprised about anything that Pope Francis does. So if he resigned tomorrow, no, I wouldn't be particularly surprised by that. If we're still having this conversation 10 years from now, I wouldn't be especially surprised by that. And, everything in between. So I think the only good piece of advice when it comes to Pope Francis is stay on your toes because you just never know what's coming next.
Absolutely, and we will stay on our toes. John Allen, editor of Crux, thanks so much for being here.
Of course.
Now that the consistory has wrapped up, Pope Francis is meeting with the world's cardinals for a two-day meeting on Curia reform. The closed-door meetings on Monday and Tuesday will focus on the Vatican's new apostolic constitution, which reorganized the Vatican's central bureaucracy. New York Archbishop Timothy Dolan is in Rome for the meeting, and he will also offer Mass at St. Peter's Basilica.
That's the reason we come to Rome, right? Because St. Peter was the first bishop here. This is where he, the Prince of the Apostles, came. And this is where he's buried, right, ta-da, right there. We call this the Clementine Chapel because Pope St. Clement put it up. And it's the closest you can get to the actual bones, the relics, the tomb of St. Peter that's been venerated here since the first century.
Cardinal Dolan says he will bring the intentions of all of New York's faithful with him as he offers Mass. Be sure to stay with Currents News and the Tablet newspaper for continuing coverage on the College of Cardinals and all the latest news out of the Vatican. The World Meeting of Cardinals wraps up the Pope's big activities for August, but that doesn't mean that the Holy Father is slowing down come September. On September 4th, he will beatify Pope John Paul I. He plans to visit Kazakhstan from the 13th to the 15th, and the Pope will also visit Assisi and Matera on September 24th and 25th. Now to New York City, where the migrant crisis continues. The promised intake center and hotel rooms are proving to be bigger issues than expected. The Department of Homeless Services says the city's initial plan to operate a processing center for the migrants from Texas next to a 600-room shelter at a Midtown hotel is no longer viable. Originally, the two were expected to be up and running by August 15th. However, city officials have only just narrowed down a finalist to operate the facility. In the meantime, migrants will continue to use the city's existing shelter system, which now includes 15 emergency hotels. While most of the migrants arriving in the city are being bused to the Port Authority, a number of them have actually been dropped off at the headquarters of Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens. And with the goal of helping the new arrivals adjust to life in the city, CCBQ spent Monday holding informational sessions at St. Charles Borromeo Church in Brooklyn Heights. They informed the migrants of their legal rights and also handed out food and supplies to them. The NYPD is searching for a group of men accused of burglarizing a Queens parish. The robbery happened at St. Anastasia Church in Douglaston early Friday morning. Officials say these three men pried open the church's rear door and entered the rectory, removing a safe, credit cards, and approximately $125 before taking off in a light-colored SUV. Anyone with information is asked to call Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS. Also, over the weekend, gunfire erupted right outside of St. Patrick's Cathedral when a game of three-card Monte went awry. According to police, two groups of people were playing the scam game along East 50th Street Sunday evening. The suspect, who lost his gold chain in the game, didn't want to give it up, so detectives say he instead pulled out a gun and fired off a single shot. No one was injured, and there have been no arrests so far. These new crimes come as the NYPD continues to struggle with staffing shortages. This year alone, nearly 2,500 police officers so far filed paperwork to leave the department. That's 42% more compared to last year, when just over 1,700 officers left. And the number of cops hanging up their holsters before reaching the 20 years for a full pension has skyrocketed 71% this year from the year before. There's a lot more news headed your way. It's been a month since their lives were torn apart. Next, a look at the progress in flood-ravaged Kentucky and how volunteers are still helping out. The faithful from the Diocese of Brooklyn standing in solidarity with the people of war-torn Ukraine. And fears about the fate of a nuclear plant in Ukraine amid new rounds of shelling. It has been a month of misery for residents in Kentucky after those deadly floods. And right now, victims are just trying to piece their lives back together. Volunteers are still there helping the victims with the cleanup and the rebuilding. The floodwaters have receded in hard-hit Breathitt County, and Samantha Valentino spoke with some of those people who are lending a helping hand.
We're just trying to pick up the pieces and salvage what we got left to make something for the future.
It's been 4 weeks since the flooding began in eastern Kentucky.
It's devastating. Yes. I mean, For example, we're looking over here and there's a picnic table, and you think that's all that's left of somebody's life.
3 retired teachers have made several trips to Breathitt County, bringing supplies from Louisville.
People have nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing left. And we just felt like we had to do something.
All Hands and Hearts is a response organization based in Massachusetts. They've been helping the people of eastern Kentucky rebuild their homes for close to a month.
We're still doing assessments. People keep calling us on the daily, requesting for assistance, so we know that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done.
Jason Ott is a pastor at the Happy Church. They have several campuses, all of which saw heavy damage from the flood.
This is the church, which has been here since probably in the 30s, 1930s. A lot of families have been here. A lot of pastors came and went, but it's to the point as well where it was cleaned to the ceiling and damaged. I'm sure with a lot of hard work and elbow grease, we can make it into a viable congregation again. And God's help, of course.
Despite the damage, they're left to clean up themselves. The church is doing what they can to help their community.
I don't see this being a short-term fix. This is something that's going to definitely go on for at least a good year, and then maybe you'll see a little bit of difference, but it's just one step at a time, one moldy home at a time. We'll just keep reaching out, helping them where we can.
That was Samantha Valentino reporting. At least 39 people lost their lives in the flood and 2 people remain missing. Despite this, Bishop John Stowe of the Diocese of Lexington commended the faith and resilience of the people of eastern Kentucky. Last week, the bishop met with residents and emergency service providers in Jackson, an area devastated by the floods, and he also toured the homes of parishioners there. While he called the sights heartrending, he says he was overwhelmed by the perseverance of those on the front lines. Assistance is still very much welcomed in Kentucky. If you'd like to help out, you can head over to CatholicCharitiesLexington.org and click on Disaster Services to donate. The Diocese of Brooklyn is standing with the people of Ukraine. 2 Williamsburg parishes formed a human chain in a show of solidarity. Members of Annunciation Catholic Church and Holy Ghost Ukrainian Catholic Church sang songs from their homelands as they joined together hand in hand in a human chain that spanned the 3 blocks between the houses of worship. The event began at 11 a.m. after each church held a mass, air horns sounding to signal the beginning of a moment of silence. Priests and parishioners alike praying for an end to the 6-month conflict.
I pray, God, that you stay safe, your families in Ukraine stay safe, and let us pray, God, this war stops immediately and people can have life as Jesus Christ taught us, love Him and love neighbor.
The Williamsburg event also honored the 31st anniversary of Ukrainian Independence Day. That's when the country broke away from the Soviet Union. The prayers for peace come amid rising nuclear fears in Ukraine. Both countries continuing their accusations that the other is shelling around Europe's largest nuclear plant. Sam Kiley reports on the latest.
The Ukrainians and the Russians have continued with their allegations that both sides have been shelling the environment around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station. Now, this is highly significant, and the significance of it raised to a dramatic level in the last few days when the only power line into that nuclear power station was cut. That forced the automatic safety system to be triggered with the use of diesel engines to produce power to keep the cooling systems around the reactors working. That has now been repaired, and indeed the power stations are back online supplying Ukraine with electricity. But there remains concerns that any kind of military action around there could result in disaster. And on top of that, the Ukrainians fear that the Russians are actually planning to steal the electricity produced there and push it into the Russian network. And this is all happening along a very active front line where in the last few days the 3rd American that's known to have been killed has been confirmed. We're not using his name yet, not publishing his name, but the Russian-backed rebels in the east have been offering reportedly to hand over his remains. What process that will involve, we don't yet know, but they have in the past shown a great deal a very hard line and a great deal of anger towards foreign fighters, sentencing several to death, those that they've captured alive, obviously, and they are also threatening to put large numbers of prisoners of war whom they captured out of Mariupol on trial as terrorists. Sam Kiley in Zaporizhia.
Still to come on Currents News, it's a place the faithful flock to. Next, the record number of pilgrims that are making the journey to the Way of St. James. And he's a baseball legend, but we'll explain why this Mickey Mantle baseball card is now the most valuable sports collectible in the world. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. It's in a league of its own. A 1952 baseball card of Yankee Hall of Famer Mickey Mantle sold for $12.6 million Sunday, making it the most expensive piece of sports memorabilia in the world. And the guy who sold it made quite the turnover. He originally bought the card in 1991 for just $50 grand and had it kept under lock and key ever since. A similar 70-year-old Mantle card previously fetched $5.2 million. Wow. There are several pilgrimage routes in Europe that lead to the shrine of the Apostle of St. James in Spain, and usually thousands of people visit the Way of St. James every year. As Kelsey Gussie reports, the summer months can usually bring in a record high number of pilgrims.
Many people make the pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela to venerate the remains of the Apostle James. Thousands of pilgrims visit throughout the year, but the summer months bring record numbers.
Approximately 1,700 are being welcomed. In January, 1,600 arrived every day. In February, 3,000. In March, 6,000. In April, 34,000. And in May, 48,000. After that, the numbers have gone up every month. They've risen a lot, and now, for example, near the Apostles' Feast Day, the 25th of July, the number of pilgrims has already reached 200,000.
Since 2021, the Camino de Santiago has been celebrating a Jubilee year, which was extended through 2022 because of the pandemic. The Holy Year only happens when the Feast of the Apostle, July 25th, coincides with a Sunday. As a result, many people make the pilgrimage to gain the indulgences granted by the Holy See. However, there are pilgrims who do not make the pilgrimage for faith reasons.
I can also say that many who left home purely for tourism, after arriving in Santiago, they arrive as pilgrims.
Most of the pilgrims are Spanish, although there is a considerable number of pilgrims from other parts of the world.
There were many Germans, many Americans, there were even Koreans. In the year 2019, which was the one with the most pilgrims until this one surpasses 2019, citizens from all countries recognized by the UN had come, all except 12 or 13 countries.
That was Kelsey Gussie reporting, and those pilgrimage routes in Europe actually date back to medieval times. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. We finish this Monday night newscast with one final look at the Pope's busy weekend. Hope to see you again next time.